Please welcome our final speaker of the day, Josh Knox, a functional consultant. Today, Josh will be presenting on saved views, custom fields, and developer list developments. Please stick around after Josh's session for a live Q&A, and don't miss our networking hour.
Well, hello, DynamicsCon. My name is Josh Knox. I'm a functional consultant with SIS, specializing in project accounting within Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. I'm really excited to be here at DynamicsCon. I just thank you so much to all the DynamicsCon sponsors who are helping put this together, all the staff that's putting it together. This is an incredible event. And if there's one thing that I want for DynamicsCon, I really want to put the con back in DynamicsCon. By which I mean, I really want to talk about Age of Ultron. So you might remember Age of Ultron as just the second of the 4 Avengers movies. You might remember Age of Ultron as the worst rated of the 4 Avengers movies. Or maybe Wanda did a little something with your mind and keeps the whole memory of Age of Ultron way far away from you. Or maybe you don't understand any of those references at all, which is fine. So to recap, just so that everybody remembers what happens in Age of Ultron. In Age of Ultron, Tony Stark creates artificial intelligence named Ultron with the goal of achieving world peace. Ultron becomes self-sufficient, determines world peace can only be attained by eliminating mankind, and sets about annihilating planet Earth and the human species. These are just setbacks with AI Builder. Right, Power Platform people? Just be careful what parameters you set. Ultron's plan involves levitating an entire city, Sokovia, and having it crash back to Earth like a giant meteor, similar to the KT extinction event, which eliminated the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. What's old is new. The Avengers assemble and spend 2.5 hours rescuing every innocent civilian now in the flying city, as well as safely lower the city's mass without creating a planet-ending boom. So why didn't people like Age of Ultron? Was it its ridiculous premise and absurd plot? I think people didn't like Age of Ultron because it really spoke truth about superheroes and superpowers. You see, there are 2 types of superheroes. There are flying and there are non-flying superheroes. If you're a superhero, you've got your flying superheroes, your Iron Mans, your Thors, Vision, War Machine, right? And then you've got your non-flying superheroes. Here you got Bruce Banner, Captain America. You've got Black Widow. You've got Hawkeye. Now, let's be honest. If your issue is there's a big flying city that you need to save, one of these groups is a little bit more useful than the other when that battle is taking place on the flying city. And there's something that Hawkeye says during Age of Ultron that I think is really important. Hawkeye, you'll remember, is a non-flying superhero. He just has a bow and arrow, and Hawkeye says, the city is flying, we're fighting an army of robots, and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense. And when he said that, it struck me. I felt like I was, it struck me like a bolt from Hawkeye's bow. You see, I'm a functional consultant, and sometimes the chaos of ERP implementation can feel like a flying city. Sometimes it feels like developers are flying superheroes, buzzing here and buzzing there. But there are also functional tools, these developer list developments, that can play a part in making a better ERP system. And everyone has a bow and arrow of sorts or something to contribute. And I want to look at some of that today. So today we're going to talk about saved views. Step 1 of saved views is you need to activate them. To activate a saved view, go into feature management and you can enable the saved view. I'm going to switch over to the my Dynamics environment really quickly to show you the feature management area and how to enable the saved view feature. So new features can be enabled in the feature management workspace. You can find the feature management workspace here on the main dashboard. is feature management, or you can go into the module itself. Now open feature management, and I want to show you the features that I've enabled here for this demo. Let me sort by enabled date. That wasn't successful. Let's do after yesterday. There we go. So this is the Save View feature. I simply went into it and clicked the Enable button. Now it's enabled. I've also enabled these new grid controls, grouping in grids, and also the ability to set a field as required through personalization. We'll look at all of those as we go through our demo. Okay, I'm going to switch back. All right. So now that those features have been enabled, now that we've activated these superpowers, let's look at what the superpowers are, and what you can do within these saved views. So saved views are an extension of regular personalizations. And you might say, oh, regular personalizations, those aren't superpowers. We've always been able to use personalizations in Dynamics 365. And that's true. There's always been an ability to use personalizations in Dynamics 365. But just look at what you have as far as tools within the Personalizations toolbar. You can hide fields. That's invisibility. You can require fields, which we'll look at. That's basically mind control. That's me telling you, you have to put something there. And you can lock fields. And I think you'll agree with me, locking a field is a form of protection. That's like a super shield. Did somebody say Captain America? I think they did. Wow, that's cool. So saved views in relation to personalizations, saved views are just a collection of personalizations. So you could have several different personalizations within one form and save that as a saved view. You can do that within forms and list pages. And saved views enable you to not just have one set of personalizations for a given form. You can have multiple sets of personalizations for that form. You have the ability to set a saved view as the default view. And then one difference between saved views versus just simple personalizations is you can take saved views and you can much more easily publish them in order to share them with other users, or publish saved views to certain security roles, so that when a user has that security role, they have instant access to that view simply because they've been given that security role. Now, as they say in another superhero franchise, with great power comes great responsibility. The nice thing about saved views is you also have a lot of tools to manage them. You can, within managing of saved views from an individual level, which we'll look at in our demo, you can set the order that you want them to display. You can pin a given saved view as a default. And then you have the ability to rename views and publish them as necessary. These are ways that views can be managed on an individual level. There's also a sysadmin form, a sysadmin personalization form, which is available to work with saved views and maintain them at a higher level. So not just an individual, but let's imagine a sysadmin that wants to control all of the different saved views that users are publishing and control. Maybe, oh, this is a good saved view. Let's make sure this gets to certain users. So I'm going to do a quick demo now. We're going to look at the personalization toolbar, different things that can be done within personalizations, how those personalizations get saved as views, and as well as setting those views setting a view as a default and publishing a view to a different security role. So I'm here on the All Customers list page, and we can bring up the Personalization Toolbar by going to Options and clicking Personalize this page. We also have the ability to use a shortcut. We can use Control-Shift-P to instantly bring up the Personalization Toolbar. I have the ability to move around the toolbar if I need access to a different area. So I'm looking at the All Customers list page, and I can make personalizations as desired within this list page. So let's say I want to move a column. I can click Move and click on my column. I'll click an arrow to the left, and you can see that I have this yellow bar telling me where this column is going to go. Press Enter, and the currency column has now been moved next to the customer name. I have the ability to hide columns. Let's say I don't want certain parts of this list page here, right? Let's say these fields don't add any value. I can click Hide. I can select those columns. And then when I close this, those columns have now disappeared from this list page. And you'll see, having made personalizations, there's now a star on this list page. Right, the star is telling me I'm in the standard view right now, and the change, but changes have been made. And it's sort of a reminder to say, would you like to save these changes? So let's say I do. I can click Save As, and we can say this is a refined view. I have the ability to save this view. So now I have my refined view. I have the ability to toggle back and forth between the standard view. This is the Microsoft default view, or this refined view that we've just created. And additionally, right, you can make changes. You can make these personalizations and change these saved views on a list page and also within a form. So I think that's an important thing to note, that those are two distinct places where saved views can be performed. So I was on the All Customers list page. Now I'm within the All Customers form, and I can do many of the same changes. So I'll press Control-Shift-P. And let's say I wanted a much simpler view of the customer form. I want something that's easy to, very legible. So I'm going to hide a lot of different things. I can press Control-Shift-P to bring up the Personalization Toolbar. I can press Hide, and then I can click on the areas that I would like to hide. So I can click both on. I can hide at the individual field level. I can hide at the group level. I can hide at the entire Fast tab level. So if I click Close, you see that field, that group, and that Fast tab are all gone. So where did they go? Well, if we bring the Personalization Toolbar back, with Control-Shift-P, and we click Hide, it reveals the elements that we're currently hiding. Additional elements that you can hide, which I think is important, is tabs and groups up here. So let's say within this view, we don't really care about any of these other tabs. We just want the customer tab and the general tab. We have the ability to block out all of these other tabs. And we have the ability, Control-Shift-P, hide, to also block out groups within the tabs that are visible. So let me move this to the side. Say in the general tab, we could hide, let's say, all of this setup and this button. So we've created a new view now with a lot of different hidden features. Coming to the view on the form, we can save this. We can save this as a simplified customer view. Other features that I want to demonstrate within our personalization toolbar, we have the ability to require a certain field. So let's say you wanted the classification group to be filled out, right? You can require it within this view, meaning that the record can't be saved unless a value there is filled out. we have the ability to move elements within this form, both at the individual field level. You can move this field up or down, and also within the context of groups and fast tabs. So you could bring sales demographics up higher on this form if you wanted. You have the ability to skip fields if you don't want them included as you're tabbing through things. You have the ability to lock fields to prevent changes. So I've made some more changes here. We'll save this as a separate view. And we'll set this as our default all customer view. So now I have several different views of this all customer form. I'm able to manage them here within Manage My Views. So I click this ellipsis and click Manage My Views. I have the ability to order these in terms of what will display first or second as I click this drop down. And I have the ability to publish a given view. Let's say we'll publish it as the default view for people within a certain security role. So you could say that maybe this simplified view is one that we want to give an accounts receivable clerk. Okay. So that's the way that personalizations can be incorporated into saved views. In Act 3 here, I'd like to enhance our superpowers and look at some additional ways that personalizations can be turned into saved views. I like to think of these as more advanced ways that personalizations can be used. One of these advances is adding a field. So instead of just hiding or manipulating something that's already available on a form or list page, we have the ability to add a field. Now we can add an existing value that's referenced from a table that's already referenced on the form or list page, or we can also create a new field. And that involves creating a new field on a table that's referenced in that form or list page. I know. So to go about creating that new field, you have to choose a table to add the field to, choose a field prefix, choose a data type, and then choose a label for the field. You can see that here. And let me just flip into the demo and we can look at it from there. So I'm back on the all customers list page. And let's say I want to add a whole new field to this form. I'm going to press Control-Shift-P and bring up our personalization toolbar again. Click Add a Field. I'm going to click here on the table where I want that field to be added. So let's say that I want payment terms to be added to this field. Simply find the existing payment terms field. We'll search for. There it is. We'll click that and we'll update. And now you can see that the terms of payment have been added to this list page. That was an existing field that was already on the customer table. But let's say we want to track and sort this by some other field, one that doesn't already exist in Dynamics. Let's imagine that we want to add a field for customer special ability. We can do that. We can press Control-Shift-P, add a field, click the table where we want this field to be added. Now, instead of searching for an existing field, we can click Create New Field. to identify the table that you want the field to be added to, say the customer table. Come up with a prefix for it. This will be the prefix that's identified on the customer table field record. Say superability. Create a label for it. This is the label that will display within Dynamics. And then select a field type. You can select a text field or a number field. It can be a date or a date time. I'm going to choose a pick list. And then we can set some pick list values. So one superhero ability might be flying. Flying. One super ability might be not flying. Let me save that. This is going to add super ability as a custom field on the cust table. Update this. And now the super ability field is available on this customer list page. Save this. Let me refresh this. Now, if we look at our refined view, we can see that super ability is here on the list page. Now we can select whether the customer has flying, come along, or non-flying abilities. This is a trivial example, but I think it's really important because adding a field used to be something that was very much a developer thing. Developers have to be able to do this, and now with this ability, you end users are able to create these additional customer fields. You don't need a developer. You don't need developer time. You don't need you don't need to worry about the promotion story and everything. I think this is incredibly powerful. All right, I'm gonna flip back to the PowerPoint now. So it's a powerful ability to be able to create these new fields, but is it a good idea? I don't think it's something that should be taken lightly. I think as anytime you create a new field in Dynamics, you should consider who needs access to that field, what data migration should be involved, and what testing needs to take place to make sure that field is working the way that you'd like it to. One thing about creating these new fields within the UI, within this save view approach, is it bypasses the traditional UAT to prod promotion type story. So this is a change that you actually make in the production environment, and with that responsibility, you need to think about what could go wrong, and if ultimately, I think your question should be, right, how bad is it going to be if this thing breaks? And if it's a trivial field, if it's just an additional informational field, maybe it makes sense to cut down on the time and do that quicker. If, on the other hand, right, this is a really important field, or this is a field that you plan on building other calculated measures on, or doing other development around this field, maybe you want that field to be created just as part of the standard development process. If you do create custom fields, you do have the ability to manage them within the form for custom fields. You can edit pick list values and things like that. And there is an information technology manager security role designed to help with that. So one other super ability that I want to talk about, right, that doesn't require development is grid control. So you remember at the beginning of this, within feature management, we activated the new grid control. And one thing that you can do with that new grid control is both grouping and totaling of data in your list page. This data can be groupings and totalings that you do can be saved as views. And in essence, this allows you to take a list page and almost turn it into a report. Let's hop over and I'll do a quick demonstration of that. So as an example of what I can do with grouping and totaling, here's the regular hours transactions page, which is giving me a long list of hours transactions within the system. I have the ability to group this and put them totals, and I can almost make this turn this hours transactions list page into a report. So I'm going to filter on the project date. We'll say, let's see what's happened in the month of January. And I can group, let's say, on an individual. So we can group on the resource column. And suddenly, right, I have basically hours information. I have a total of hours per given resource. I can see that Yvonne had 160 hours in the month of January. I can see that Zach worked 160, etc. And I can use personalizations to bring in these are the cost price and sales price, but I want the actual, or I want the total cost and total sales price associated with these hours. But I can use my personalizations to bring that in. Just Control-Shift-P. Add a field. On the table. We can say, show me the totals. Add total cost and total sales amounts. And then I can press let me get out of this. I can press the M button to select move here. And I can come and I can select cost and left. Bring cost next to the hours. I can select total sales price. Bring that over here as well. Let's close that. And then we right click on the total cost and we can say total this column. We can right click on the sales and we can say total this column. And with very little effort, right, I now have a report of hours by month, by resource, and I can see the total cost and sales amounts that were associated with those hours that were worked. I simply need to save this. We'll call this January hours, grouped by resource. And this is a saved view that could be shared with other roles to whom that information would be important. So that's grid control. Moving along, it is time to recap. Did somebody say cap? So to recap, today we looked at feature management. We looked at saved views. We looked at how to create a new field within the concept of personalizations and saved views. And then we looked at how grid controls could be used to use grouping and totaling on list pages to create do-it-yourself reports. So I'd like to close with some additional wisdom from Hawkeye from the Age of Ultron. Right after he says the part that started our presentation, he says, I'm going to go back out there because it's my job. It doesn't matter what you did or who you were. If you go out there, you fight. If you step out that door, you are an Avenger. All right, good chat. I think that sums up what we've done here. Saved views are a tool for you to go out and fight and win. So good luck with that. We're now ready for questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Just a huge thank you to DynamicsCon, to all the sponsors, and just the great people that are putting this presentation together. It's really been fun to present with you, and I'm really looking forward to your questions. So just go ahead and right down there or over there, or wherever the chat is, go chat it up. I'm looking forward to trying to answer what I can. All right, it looks like we are live. Can the moderators confirm that? We're live. All right, fun. A lot of great questions that we had in the chat. I'll try to address them. Got them over here because I'm not good at these screens, so I'm sorry if they look over here and then here. But here you are. Here we are. Let's talk. Annalisa had a great question. She said, when creating a saved view, do you have access to all the fields on that table? And the answer is you essentially, one, everything is security controlled. So if your security privileges don't let you see certain fields, right? If that security has been a part of that within creating a personalization and saved views, you're not going to have access to those fields. There are also some system defined fields. For instance, if you were to have, the last change date, modified date time, those sorts of fields, those don't usually appear in your list of fields that you're able to select from. But for the most part, the fields that you select are, you do have access to all the fields on the relevant tables of the form. Michelle asked, when personalizing these views, can these be saved across multiple users or user roles? So you could see that, right, as when you a saved view is essentially a personal concept. You have a personal saved view, and then you can publish that, right? As an individual user, you publish that view, and then there are these sysadmin tools that allow you to take that published view and spread it to other roles. So basically, you can publish based on roles. That's the most important part. I hope that answers the question. Annalisa also asked, right, do saved views have an owner, right? Is it possible to prevent other users from making changes to a view? I'm going to share my screen quickly. I just wanted to show a bit more around that. Let me get this over here. We'll put this. So if you're able to see my screen, you can see that within personalizations, you can see, right, personal views. So this would be a personal view that I have, right? This is in that sysadmin setup personalizations. I have a personal view that I've created called customer group 10. It's just a filtered view of customers. And then when I publish that, it's accessible here in the, basically I can publish it. And then as a sysadmin person, you can choose to unpublish it or publish it back. So right now this is in the unpublished state. I can quickly publish it. And then you can see that it's back, right? So at this point, this published view, it's really more owned by the organization. You can see that within my personal view, right, all the personal views that each individual user is creating, sort of not for public consumption, they're visible here within the sysadmin form. Saul asked the question, right, will the new view be editable in Excel? or sorry, will the new field be editable in Excel? Talking about adding fields and then what happens to those. In the custom fields form, let me refresh this. Well, that's what happens when I demo on the fly. The version isn't here, but basically, if I have an additional field within the custom fields form for controlling those, you do have the ability, right? So if I had a custom field on the customer table, you'd see all of your entities that touch the customer table, and you would have the ability to enable or disable that custom field as a part of that entity, which then would allow you to do your loading, data into that field, through Excel or through the data migration workspace, which was Steve's question. Steve also added the comment, I hope that admins can control access to adding fields, right? You can imagine it being a nightmare if anyone could add any field that they wanted. Right, there, two people can add fields. Sysadmin users have the ability to add fields. And then also there's a special security privilege that's been created. It's called the Runtime Customization Power User Security role. Nice mouthful. Jake was kind enough to post the saved or the saved view documentation there in the chat. It's easy to find in you can just Google it on and see the Microsoft documentation. They address that and the limitations there in the documentation. Karen asked, right, the field you add, is that only reflected in that particular view, or does it get applied to the actual database to be usable downstream? And Karen, the answer is that when you create that new field, it does get added to the database. So if you're adding something to the cust table, table, part of what you're entering is you enter a prefix to the field that you're going to add, and it really does get added to that cust table through the magic of field creation. One last question or one statement, Jake added, I love the idea of these fields, but does anyone actually use them, do you think? There's no real control over them, and I can see users being upset when data accidentally gets deleted somehow. And it's a great question, Jake. And if you're working in a normal sort of development pipeline where you have developers that are able to add things and quickly responsive, et cetera, it would make sense to be able to allow your developers to add those fields and then get those promoted through the normal pathways. And and I talked about that as a caution, right? Really, I wouldn't put critical data into these extra fields, but maybe if it's month-end close and you need an extra tag for something right away, just so that you can sort your data appropriately, that's a use case. But I think the number one use case for these additional custom fields is sales demos. Let me turn back to the screen and see if we have any additional questions. Steve asks, what's Bing? It's a new thing. I don't know what else to say about that. Let's see. Is there any way to save the order in the saved view? That's a great question. And let me share my screen again. I can answer that one. So if we were to look at all customers, you do have the ability, right, personally within your grouping, in the manage my views. This gives you the ability, you can move move different fields up or down to say, I want this view first and then this view. And so we've put the standard view at the bottom and the customer group at the top. Update. And you can see that's reflected here when you click the grouping dropdown. All right, let's get up here and see if we have anything else in the questions. Allison says, well-themed presentation. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate that. He said, adding user-defined fields wasn't encouraged in the beginning, but do you feel it's safe enough now? I feel it. Adding fields is safer now that this information is a part of the sort of this is real database data. It's not sort of part of the user data. I think it's safer. That's a good question, but with the caveat, if it's really important, you probably want to use the traditional paths. Damien says, if you create a field in prod, once you copy to test to prod, you will wipe it out. So Damien, if you create a field in prod, you're creating that field in the database. And so a database copy from prod down to test would carry that new field into your test environment. And if you were doing a code promotion of code, right, a new functionality in the code from test to prod, that wouldn't wipe out the new field because the field's being stored in in the data, not in the it's not part of the code, or the code's not the essential element of it. Jake gives me credit for wearing the same shirt. It's really my everyday shirt, Jake. Thank you for the comment. We've answered that. We've answered that. Someone in sales says, don't give away my secrets. Secrets out, sorry. I think maybe she meant save the sorting of columns on the grid. It's more of a question if you can save the order of the account ID or the description in the grid. I'm not sure. If you can go ahead and shoot me an email, and we could talk about that more. I'm not quite following that question there. And Jennifer appreciated the keyboard shortcuts, which again I'm a huge fan of. I love, I think keyboard shortcuts make using Dynamics 365 for F&O so much more efficient. I think it's something that you can teach new users. They can quickly absorb and really have improve the user experience of using F&O. So I'd really encourage teaching new users, especially, how to use the shortcuts. And I think that there's a lot of potential within saved views. So many of these forms just have so much data and information. I think you could really hide a lot of things from new users. They don't need to be exposed to everything all at once. I think that's a huge opportunity for improvement in making a very large system feel a bit more cozy. Are there any other questions? Well, if not, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to present for all of you. I really want to thank the sponsors that make DynamicsCon happen. I know that ADP was the session sponsor for this session, so just a really heartfelt shout out to ADP. We appreciate your support of this conference.